Hello everyone, today is November 2nd, 2023, and I have decided to do a sort of an update on my fight against anxiety, depression, insomnia, etc. This is why I started this channel, to distract myself and dig deep into what interests me and makes me happy. And what always has made me happy is sharing with others my fortune, my thoughts, my love, everything that uplifts one's spirit, at least in my opinion. So, the most important thing is to give yourself the time to dig deep into yourself and try to be as objective as possible. And that implies removing all emotion that you feel towards your past, current events, and the gloom and doom of the future. Yes, my mind goes now to Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now. There's a message in there, very strong message. I read this book when it came out, so I don't recall everything. All I know is that I did buy it and gift it to a few people just to spread the message that we do need to live in the now. However, since then, I sort of changed my view in a few things. I mean, I should be reading this book again. However, my time is limited, considering that I am focusing on healing myself, and one main aspect of this is not to bring in more information that overwhelms me, confuses me, makes me doubt things in myself. I mean, once you are at a place where you're balanced on all fronts, you are better able to assess new information. However, I jokingly started saying that this book should be called The Power of No, because I think what our society is struggling with the most is the fact that people are not used to saying no to things they do not agree with. And that's because we have been conditioned to accept everything that comes our way. And yeah, that's pretty sad. I mean, it's very difficult to erase all the programming that's been done on you since you were a child, since you were forced into thinking a sort of way. The first mistake somebody makes is taking the path that is most common. Like, if you follow a path that has been already determined, you will never be able to discover other paths. I mean, how else can you discover new things if you follow the same route? It's pretty much what Einstein was saying. If you think the same way, I'm just paraphrasing, I can't remember. One of my problems is I can't remember a lot of things ad literam, but I know what they mean, and I think that's very important. It's not repeating something like a robot without understanding what it means. There are so many people who have memorized quotes, but what the deep meaning is eludes them completely. And that's where I'm thinking of hypocrisy. At least that's where my mind goes looking at this. Anyway, what I was talking about is finding out the triggers, following your own path of self-discovery. We are all so different. We have things that work for us, but do not work for others. Some things work for other people, but will not work for us. So this is something that we need to identify. Of course, you need to try these things and see if they work for you. In my quest to healing, I had to distance myself from expectations. Expectations when it comes to myself. I tend to be too demanding when it comes to myself. And also expectations that others have of you, of us. Because their expectations most likely do not meet your needs. And I know this sounds selfish, but when you are in a stage when you're trying to recover from what this society did to you, because you allowed it in your naivety, because it was pounded into your head growing up, it is pretty hard to undo what has been done to you since you were vulnerable, since you were innocently believing everything that you were told. I don't know why my mind goes now to those parents who have children that are so bright and inquisitive and wanting to learn. Children, especially when they are little sponges, absorbing information, wanting to know. And you have those parents that are too tired to cope with so much energy, and they tend to muffle and gag their children, either by giving answers that are not true or simply shutting them up because they're uncomfortable. Sadly, I do know. I have examples of this, and it's really sad. A parent is not allowing their child to explore what it is that they have inclination towards, because it makes them uncomfortable. It is inconvenient. And then you have the other side of the spectrum, parents who are so demanding with their children, and they impose so much on them, enrolling them in so many things, because they're projecting, oh, when I was a kid, I would have loved to do this. I would have loved skating, painting, doing ballet, dancing, singing, without looking objectively at their children's skills. I know of a case. This lady, she loved her child, of course. I'm assuming she still loves her child. I lost contact with her. However, she did something horrible to her child in her desire of helping developing her as much as she could, give her an advantage for the future in this competition of becoming someone in a tough world. So this lady has enrolled her child in so many programs. The poor kid did not have a spare minute for herself to be a child. And of course it was with all best intentions. But that does not take away the fact that she has overwhelmed this child to the point that something happened to the little girl. She actually became invalid. She was bound to a wheelchair for absolutely no reason other than mental shutdown. And I tried at the time to tell her that maybe the poor kid had too much to do for such a young age. And maybe she had expectations of her child that surpassed the abilities of the little girl. At the time I was thinking, this poor kid loved her mother so much that she did not express herself. Of course, parents come with the authority trait. You have to obey your parents. You are too little to say, yes, I want to obey you, but I don't think this is right. It's overwhelming, it's too demanding, and it is unreasonable. Fortunately, with this shutdown that happened in this kid's mind, being confined to a wheelchair and stopping to communicate completely, has forced her mom to take a different approach, a loving approach. I don't know why I spent so much time on this, but it really impacted me. I felt so bad for both of them, for the girl's family, but more for herself, because I can't stop thinking how vulnerable children are. They don't have much power to do much at all. And that's why we need to be very careful with our children. I do not have children, and maybe I should not speak on it. But it's just from the point of observation. Let kids be kids. Don't impose things on them that are unreasonable. You won't have an opera singer if the poor kid is tone deaf. Anyway, I strayed away from what I wanted to say, but at the same time I realize why this is so impacting me. Because most of the problems that we have later in life are stemming from what happened to us when we were kids. I had to stop recording. I got very emotional. But I would like to continue with what I was talking about, healing ourselves. Yes, we need to go far back in time and see what our triggers were, what caused us to become who we are, and what steps we need to take in order to remove those triggers. For me, was anxiety that was caused by expectations, both from others and expectations that I had of myself. When I was little, I wasn't focused on what I wanted. I was focused on what others wanted from me and trying to behave according to the rules that were presented to me. Of course, I was questioning a lot of things. I've been questioning things all my life, now more than ever, because I realized a bit late in my life how futile it is to try fulfill the expectations of others. And again, it sounds selfish, but it's not. If you are conducting your life based on what the society wants from you, even though it is wrong, on an ethical level, moral, etc., you need to question these things. Another aspect that is very important, and I already mentioned it a couple of times, but I feel it is important to stress it out again, is to try to remove emotion when you're assessing things. And as hurtful as it may be, it needs to be done. Because if you are too emotional, if you are hurting and you're trying to assess whatever it is you need to assess, your mind is clouded. You are tempted to go into the victim mentality. Personally, I refuse to be a victim. It is a state of mind. You're only a victim if you allow that to happen. Do not be a victim. If you become a victim, it is because on some level you are allowing it. There are situations when you can't do anything about it. Somebody just slaughtered you in the victim state. But most of the time, it has to do with you. What you decide and what steps you're taking to take yourself out of that victim state imposed on you. We always have control only over our actions, reactions, and that is what we have to play with when it comes to our lives. It is a long-winded message here. I apologize. I'm pretty sure almost no one made it through. But if you did, I thank you for listening, for hearing me out. I'm of opinion we always learn something, even though it is tedious to get to the message. There's always a message hidden somewhere, which our subconscious is picking up on. especially if it rings true. I feel like I found the key to my successful recovery. Trying to be less emotional. Trying to keep a clear mind. You will never take the best decision if you're panicking, if you're worrying, if you're listening to all those opinions that are quite opposite to yours. They do tend to make us second guess ourselves. And in my experience, whenever I sabotage myself like this, is when I start second guessing. When I stray away from sticking by my truth, by the love that I feel in my heart. I've always wore my heart on my sleeve, and that is perceived by people as a weakness. I see it as my greatest strength. That is the way I honor who I am. My soul, the essence of my being. Another key in healing is accepting your mistakes, having compassion towards your decisions that were maybe not the right ones, the choices you made in your life. I don't know if I am arrogant, but I am pleased with the choices I've made in my life. Of course, if you are to ask others who know me, they probably would argue quite strongly. But you see, it's not about their lives. It's about your life. It really doesn't matter in the end, if you think about it. You made those decisions. You need to embrace them. They reflect who you were at the time when you took those decisions, and then what you did after. Alright, so in essence, you need to determine what is triggering you. Taking the time for yourself. First, decide what it is you need to work on. Sometimes it's best to attack the root cause of your issues, even though some people think that progress is by taking little steps, which is true in some situations. But when it comes down to your health, your healing, you need to cut the snake that causes the most destruction in your healing process. This is it for now. I will share more in the future. I love you all. Take care.